asses off for 12 to 14 hours a day, a whole week, and, or 2 weeks even. And after that, when it's finished, everybody is happy, and we really have the urge to party. But we don't have really enough thing to party on that. Alcohol consumption is not opportune at that moment because everybody's too tired and really don't want to do it. So that gave us the idea to have something like a surprise. You could, as a company management, you could surprise your people something with coffee and other beverages, even some snacks with that, and you present them to them. And you can, based on the culture that is there in that company, you can customize it. That was one of the ideas. You can also do it with birthdays and on other occasions. So it would be something, a service that could be followed. And the other one, Frank also mentioned yesterday, Coca-Cola's mass customization machine. This idea was also thought of in 2006 by these customers, that you could have something that not only gives coffee or variants on coffee, but you could also think of other beverages, other mixes, and so on. So this idea was also presented to them. The last one didn't make it with the top management. I see that Coca-Cola took initiative on that and doing that. And so it's just missed their opportunity. But it shows that really some good ideas that can come out from such customers. 2 projects, we did more projects on that, but that interested me because you could also see that a lot of what's going on in the co-creation front. Lego with Mindstorms, I don't know if you're familiar with it, with locomotives, where you can design your own car. And if it's really a viable car, then it could be manufactured. Fiat, just around that time in 2006, it came with the Cinco, where it was crowdsourced to consumers, to users, to design it and also to commercialize the car. That brought to me, but to see is there enough knowledge for managers to go for a co-creator? Because I stumbled on several missing gaps that were in this area. To show you that, first of all, there's this restraint with managers to do it. They really want to do it. This is a survey that was done in 2008 by a marketing magazine in the Netherlands. And you see that on the marketeers, there's a really great intention to do co-creation because it was right in that moment, but people really didn't know how to do it and thought that the company wouldn't allow it and so on. All excuses, and you see that only a small part says to do co-creation. You're looking at the academic research at the time, you could see some, what I call ambitions. An emphasis on, Frank already mentioned that, the lead user method, the lead user approach. Thinking, saying that you could only do co-creation, at least in innovations with lead users. But there was also some other academic research showing that it could also be done with ordinary users. But the emphasis was on lead users. So if you were looking for ways to do that, it would be very difficult because, first of all, we have to find these lead users. And Frank already told us lead users are usually people who already thought of a solution for the problem. So it would be something like serendipity. It would be coincidence if you really found these ideas. So it would suggest that you have to wait for some lead user to stand up and say, I've got an idea for you, and do it. I know I'm being a little too short on that, but that would be the perception of managers. Most in case descriptions about Lego, there's a lot. An emphasis on consumer co-creation. And like I said, it's also possible in the business-to-business context. I myself, I'm a former Air Force officer, and I know the technical sense that a lot of the ideas that the F-16 or the F-104 that you flew them, a lot of the new ideas that were incorporated in this plane were also thought of at the field levels. Sometimes ordinary users who have the business context. So you can also think on how to do that in the business context. And again, like I said in the beginning, a lot of the research was focusing also on the technology, using the internet to enable this. So I thought, well, especially small and medium-sized companies are not the companies that really have all the internet facilities, don't have a really good website and so on. So it would be, mostly because they usually don't have the budget to develop something like that and buy all the tools to do that. So yeah, it would be something for them to create. So that makes me, and to support that, as you can see now, this year, this was 2 months ago in the Journal of Product Innovation Management, you can see that a lot of the literature that appears on this still doesn't really give you the tools, the real way to do co-creation. So that was my motivation to do the research. Okay, I'm going to go quickly this. This is how I set it up. Systematic research, going for some interviews with practitioners and some experts. For instance, I went to Lego in 2008, and I was on my way to Denmark for a conference. I just drove along to Billund and had a conversation with several managers there on co-creation. Case studies, I did some additional systematic research, and then I designed a protocol, scientifically built, sound on all these inputs that I had. I validated it by giving it to some practitioners, some experts, or some academics, asking them to see whether this protocol would work. And all of them agreed that it could work, but then I still had to test it, and that is what I'm doing at this moment. And I'm also going to show you later on some evidence that it works. Systematic research. What could be done is a lot of readings that I've done there. You can see about it. But what could be mentioned is that this is a journey that you're not taking alone. I had the luck to have 2 master students, one from Eindhoven University, one from Tilburg University, to do their master thesis in our company. And they helped me on 2 subjects. One of them concentrating on the tools, looking what tools you could use on that, and the other one on a particular form of co-creation, that's the crowdsourcing, looking how that would work. What can be mentioned is this framework. After reading all of this stuff, I developed this framework. You can see that I've categorized all these findings. There's something that say of the context, the conditions on which for the implementation. And you can see that it's in most cases a dichotome. That you can see in the case it could be, for instance, the market orientation, it could be customer orientation, it could be a technological orientation. So all these cases I plotted like this. You could put this slide in the correct position, and then try to discover patterns on the network. Doing that, it resulted in a development of some design propositions, 28 in total, and I'll show you with one example what that entails of. You can see when it addresses the amount of participants in this co-creation sense, it depends on, first of all, the stage that you're doing. You're looking at could be in the conception stage, implementation, commercialization, or the innovation stage. And then you see that the amount of participants can vary. And the variation in that, there's governed by the red lines. It depends on the channel that you're using, whether you're doing that offline or online. You can imagine that the offline version would be the smallest amount, and the online it could do with crowdsourcing. And you see that, especially in the implementation, the development stage, the amount of participants is the least. So that gives you some insight. So you usually don't crowdsource the development stage, and you only use a small amount of participants. And then in this way, the design proposition is development, in which I use the CIMO way of formulating. Let's not get into that. So it resulted in 20 of these, every color covering one of these design propositions. You see some overlap and so on. So, but this still looks very messy. Because you can't make sense of it, so I tried to reorganize it, and it resulted in this. If you put them all together, it's 28 design propositions. You find this pattern. There are some general applicable design propositions, and there are some that are specific for what I call a route. And in this way, I discovered 4 routes. So you do this, if you go on co-creation, first you go do some decisions on to be made in context sense. That explains which route to take, and then they take that route, and then in the end there are also some similar things to do. What are these routes? It's a kind of road signs that you get indicating which route to take. I've all given them a name, and which I'm going to explain shortly with some examples at this moment. I call the first one Dreamcatcher, the second one Contest, and Contest is already been explained by Frank, the Touchstone and the Endpoint. What are they? I'm going to show you with the Lego example, because Lego, I've seen all these 4 routes being applied. I'll show you with the Lego example, but also with another example to show you what I mean by that. The Dreamcatcher, that's where ethnography comes in place, but also where you can actively engage with these community, So either you set up a user community, or you look for a user community in the field, and you go observing, but also creating a dialogue with the users, and then try to catch these suggestions, ideas, complaints that they have in order to develop something. It's called Dreamcatcher, so in that case, you try to catch the dreams that are living amongst these users. You can also create it. It's also not only online, but you can also create it. And that's what we've done with the DAO Equity case. And later on, I'll show you another case where we can do that offline. Yes, well, this would be an example of cases doing that. Dell Ideastorm does it. It invites you to give you suggestions on your ideas. And my Starbucks idea is also an example of how to do that. Yeah, that's the Dreamcatcher idea I'm talking about. But again, not only online, you can also do that online. The contest, Frank elaborated on that extremely good. I think Lego also does that, invites its users to create something and then rewarding them for that by putting it into production. You also get a part of the revenue, but that's not really the motivation or the incentive that people are doing it for. It's usually if you can really have your own idea being also manufactured, that it can be sold, that will give you a great idea. Crowdsourcing is a way of doing the contest. Crowdsourcing is not particularly co-creation. You can crowdsource anything you like, but you can use it in the co-creation sense. And it's very easy because people who feel attracted on helping you will help you out and give some their ideas on that. And there's a real big potential out there. Yeah, it's also a great chance of finding the right answer or right answers that you're looking for. There's something what Fiat did, we already mentioned it, both in the design stage and in the commercialization stage. So I'm not going to go too much on that. The touchstone, that is where we mentioned this testing stage, where you have an idea of your own, a concept of your own as a company, and you want to reinforce it, you want to strengthen it along with your company. So you can confront them with your idea, your concept, and tell them how can I improve this idea so that it would suit your needs better. Well, Lego does that with architecture, uses support of architects on that. But one particular case that we did in the Netherlands is the cancer center of this Free University Medical Center. It's a new building that they built there. So they had top architects designing this building. But one thing that the architects didn't take into mind was how to customize it to its users, especially cancer patients. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with it, cancer patients really need rest when they're being treated for chemotherapy or radiotherapy and so on. They don't need all the noise of the hospital around them, they need special entrance and so on. So we did this concept testing with cancer patients, and it really the whole idea of this building changed in lots of ways to accommodate it to the cancer patients. So it was a good step to take. And the last one is the employment. You can, especially in the development stage, where you can make hire of your customers, like your employees, make them part of your development team, where they help out with hands-on on developing your Lego does that with the Muppets, the Mindstorms user panel. You are invited to help on the developments. But you also see that with the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, who made its maiden flight, it's in Dutch actually, made its maiden flight last year, but where about over 120,000 users, and it's all senses, the pilots, cabin crew, technicians, traffic controllers, all these are labeled as possible users of this Dreamliner, who for their part were involved in creating this aircraft, developing it. What I want to say, we had these 4 routes, but you can see that they're not excluding each other, so it's not an either or for these routes, but you can see that there are crossovers. So you can switch from one route to another route depending on the situation that you have, which is all in this protocol telling you when you can switch to which other route. So this is in simple sense what the protocol tells you what to do. Some of these generic guidelines are also in it. When we were talking about customers, I would say if you do this co-creation, aim for the end user, especially in chain situations where you have companies delivering to each other and there's some end user. Always try to involve this end user also in this co-creation, because that's the end user that is. I mentioned this double average case, so all these consumers, these coffee consumers in these corporations or in these companies should also be involved. Best would be to do it as early as possible. The least chance you have for failure. If you wait till the commercialization phase, you could have develop something that wouldn't be accepted by the market. The earlier you do it, so it would be in the ID generation, then the more chance you have that it will be accepted. Something about rewarding. I know that if you, Frank also mentioned it, that especially these industrial designers react on these contests. You see that also that in contests, there's one particular case in the Netherlands where you can see it. It was from Lace. It was called the Lace Chips. They had this contest where you could, what you call that?
Flavor.
Yeah, you make your own flavors for the chips. So you get the seasoning for it. And something like over 700,000 ideas were sent in. But if you looked at all these, and it was done because there was a reward promised of 20,000 euros in advance. But you can see that also about 3/4 of these ideas were really rubbish. Some even very what you call wild, because like urine chips, that's something that would not. But to tell that it really doesn't give a good example, because people react and just submitting and giving you a lot of work just because they think they can get a reward. My idea is that you should reward people, but don't promise them any reward in advance. Don't tell them that you're going to receive this or that. Let people do that for intrinsic motivation, and afterwards you can also always reward them by them. Don't use the same participants all through these stages that you're going to do. Change them, alternate these participants, because you will, otherwise you will get, if somebody has an idea, you go on with the idea. If it doesn't hold on later in the stage, you can get some people getting angry because their idea fell off the table. So try to change it. But also for motivational problems, because people don't go through the whole. Respect. Frank showed us the dialogue. Show that you really appreciate inputs, show your reactions, give feedback on contributions, conduct a dialogue with these people, respect them in all matters. And one thing that's really something that I'm also testing still at this moment, I say building metaphor language and analogies. You can see that in the way people talk, they always have some solution which is the experience that they want, that is in some even in some metaphor that we use. And that's something you can use as a to continue the conversation with them. So if someone says that he feels like when he makes an insurance claim that it's like a luxury liner, you could ask them, why is it a luxury liner? Now, they could explain that it would be that you treat it well, you get everything you want, but only it's so slow before they pay out. So you can go, okay, how about that? Then you find out what's really the problem, that it's slow, and then you can elaborate it further on and see what metaphor would fit it. You could say it would be an airliner, for instance, okay, and how can we create this airliner for you when it goes for insurance? So that will be an idea that I'm still working on to find out. So now you see, I got this protocol. I think I made a road, but it still doesn't show that it works. What about getting it? I'm going to show you two. Also a telecom provider. It's a subsidiary of the largest telecom provider in the Netherlands, which is really a small telecom provider. It's called Hi. In this case, what we did was also first we invited something like 30 possible existing customers to for two-week periods to maintain a diary on the use of the cell phone, to write down every use that they made of it, and in case they had some particular good idea on making the use better or the experience better, they should also write it down. This is a physical example of the diary, but they could also do it online or even on their cell phone. Afterwards, they send it in. Some of them were invited to do a personal interview, 12 of them. We had this personal interview and dig deeper into what their needs were. And based on these insights, we had also, again, 2 sessions consisting of 8 customers, potential customers, on generating new ideas for services by this telecom provider, and evaluating these ideas and then selecting some of them. So that was the process that we did. This was the winning idea. One of the problems that people had, I say winning, but that was the best idea that came out. One of the problems with all these people was they had no idea of the usage, especially when you were abroad and you don't realize that you are roaming or something. You're very surprised if you get the bill afterwards saying how much you have used. People are not aware of these information. So this dashboard was suggested. You have on your cell phone that you can always call upon to see what your usage was at that moment. We had a cartoonist along with the sessions who made all the SDs visual immediately, so you can have your visualization that will help on evaluating the idea. Here are some photographs on what was happening. It was also was videotaped. We made a movie of it, which is regrettably in Dutch, so I can't show you that. The ideas that were made were written on post-its. They are discussed. Everybody presented their ideas. They were discussed, elaborated upon what they were, and then visualized on these. Another idea, for instance, was this high box of records. People that could, based on the usage, you could try to make some records. So you could, that's really from a company viewpoint, that would be nice. People using the cell phone a lot for SMSs or for, and for the hours that they were using that, and for in this instance, this analogy that is made, paalzitten, sitting on a pole in Holland is something that is being done every year to see who sits the longest time on this pole. So you can make this analogy. If you can even this record, you get a nomination, and everybody could see that you've broken that record of paalzitten. And another evidence that I have is that's here in Eastern Europe. I call it Eastern Europe. There's a car import in Europe. I cannot mention the country which it's in, but I can assure you that it's been done. It's done by Hyundai brand. What is that case? This importer was dealing with a lot of disloyal customers. They had a lease on Hyundai, drove it for 3-4 years, and then switched to another brand. What they wanted to do was to improve this this customer loyalty. So they coincidentally, this one of the managers there did his master thesis in the Netherlands, and that's the way that she got acquainted with my protocol and decided to apply my protocol in the company. And so they did it. My protocol starts with this selection of the route that you're going to by a workshop. The senior management did it. So they choose what the objectives to make, increase loyalty and the routes. They chose to do a route where they have ideation, and after this ideation to change transfer them into concepts, and then have some concept testing with some customers. And this is what was done. Email was sent to all of them, to about 250 users who gave their ideas. These were evaluated by the company and clustered into concepts. 5 concepts were chosen from that, and 4 focus groups were held where these were presented to them, where they could also strengthen. A choice of 2 viable new customer services were chosen by these customers. One of them was a loyalty card, in which you could not only give discounts on maintenance and auto parts, but also on other possibilities. So you can increase loyalty. And the other one was maintenance insurance. I call it maintenance insurance. You give an extra surplus on payment for your lease, in which you are guaranteed that you get all free maintenance during the use of it, and extra, beyond the guarantee period, yes? Beyond the warranty period. So you never have to pay for the maintenance on that. So these are the. Well, you can see that in both cases we didn't do that online or something like that. It could also be done because these are usually medium-sized companies that could also do that offline and get good ideas from that. So in my lead is conference. I'm still working on more evidence that the protocol really works, and also refining this protocol, because every day I get new insights on how things really work and so on. So right now this protocol is being changed into a protocol version 2.0, and will probably be published in the near future. I'm coming to the end. It shows that maybe you should read the cartoon first. It shows that, in my experience, you see a lot of companies stating that they're talking to, they're having conversations with their customers, but they're really doing that in a real indirect mode. So they're using market research, insights that other companies have gathered and so on, or reading news and such, to get a perception of what is living in customer that really never got into the real conversation. And I think that would be the starting edge of this co-creation idea, that you have, first thing to do would be is start this conversation. Really have a direct conversation. And you will hear that there are, even with ordinary users, can be really good ideas that gives you something that you can build upon, that will create new services, new products, and so on. Not all of them will be cutting edge ideas. I agree on that, because it's something that lead users usually really do. But I think that, yeah, not every business is really looking for radical ideas every time. So you also could use real improvements and incremental ideas that can also be used. So I think co-creation is not something that is exclusively to be done to radical new ideas, but it could also be done for these incremental improvements. So just start talking to your customers. I hope this illustrates what are the journey I've been through these past years and what resulted in. But to tell you the truth, I don't think I'm at the end of the road yet. I still have a long way to go and to improve this pavement of the road every day. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Yeah, now I invite most of Klein to join this discussion. So you are free to ask.
What is your picture for the next 5 years? So could you see what is coming up in these 5 years? Technological driven co-creation, or what do you think?
Well, on the technology side, I don't know what's your opinion on that, but I don't see, I think we have a lot and it will improve, perhaps go mobile. I think what I would like to see, but I don't know if it will happen in the next 5 years, perhaps it will take the next 10 years, that really more and more companies are doing it as a practice and not just as a pilot. And think of mass customization. We are talking since 20 years of mass customization, and most companies are still not doing it on a large scale, established companies. So probably with co-creation, it will take another 10 years that really companies do it routinely. They will start a pilot, there will be some pioneers. So, from my opinion, I think this is what will happen in the next years, that companies really just starting to do it.
Well, to my opinion, I think technology again is an enabler to facilitate it, make it possible to increase your reach. So you can reach a larger crowd, a larger potential customers. But still, I think it, aside from tooling on capturing ideas and processing them and so on, I think where technology could be handy would be to create systems that really also enable this conversation, this dialogue that I'm referring to. Because a lot is still nowadays, I believe, what you call observation. You, as a company, you still have to do a lot of processing of all this information that you get before you can really make something out of that. Because it would be handy if you could really start a conversation in that way people are doing. I don't know whether social media is the way to do that, because in spite of all these initiatives that companies have on going to Facebook and other social media, I don't really see people really having conversations with the companies on that.
Do you think about mass customization and co-creation separately, or do you think that they can be combined in a way? Because successful mass customization can be made just by collecting the correct needs of the customers or different customer groups and combining them in a customized product. What do you think about it, or do you have any different ideas, common ideas by combination of them?
Yeah, I think you already had some examples where you combined it. Huh?
I know of one good example, Jettison, you know about it. It's in the gaming industry where this is going on, where you have something like mass customization where you can create your own surround and so on. Where you could also, aside of that, create some co-creation potential on that, on improving that mass customization. We were calling that the solution for it's called configurator, and improving this. So you can co-create on improving this configurator, so giving more ideas and so on. That's the only thing I can think of in mass customization is the action.
So I would say, as every company, of course, also as a mass customizer, you can use co-creation to improve your configurator, to improve your offer. I think, but if we think I think the relation is more fundamental. Why are people co-creating? Why are lead users inventing? As they want something that is beyond the existing standard. So the original initiative why people create is as they want to have something customized, just for their needs, and perhaps for a niche market that not has been seen. So I would say it's more an alternative, like quirky, what they are doing. They produce standard products in millions of batches. And it all starts with an individual niche that has not been utilized by a manufacturer before. So co-creation, I would see as an alternative. And it may be, of course, I can use it exactly as you say to improve my mass customization, to learn about options. But I think, like quirky, for me, it's an alternative strategy. One thing is, I could really use mass customization for kitchen gadgets or electronic gadgets, Or I can use co-creation to better find a niche product that then I can mass produce for a larger customer segment.
Just a comment. I totally agree with you that you need to bring use in as early as possible. And in reality is, yeah, big companies, they can afford to do it. And in creative industry, like you said, a lot of small size company. And it is hard to let them to bring user at the right of the beginning. Most of the cases they test at the end. So do you have any opinion on that side?
That's why it is difficult to bring in?
Yes, it's between the different size of companies.
Well, to tell you the truth, I can see it also in small and medium-sized companies, especially in the business-to-business context, already doing that, especially when it's what you call working in projects or engineering to order projects, so on. The customers are already involved in the earlier stage and participating. In the consumer context, why it would be difficult is because, first of all, I think most of these managers or entrepreneurs believe that you need some technological tool to facilitate that, because they are all and the other one would be in the context of the IP protection, intellectual property protection, that they're afraid of disclosure of it. So they're in search of something that will guarantee them. There would be an explanation. Let me tell that in advance, because there could be other explanations also. But they're afraid in advance that this co-creation idea will get around and, with their competitors, and that their competitors would steal the idea or something like that. That's a problem that I see what we're doing. So whenever they're looking for a technological tool to do that, one of the things would be that it would be in a closed environment, that nobody can get in, that you need to use username, passwords, and so on and so on and so on, making it difficult then for consumers to take part in that, because who wants to be in such a close surrounding to participate? So I think that would be one of the explanations of that. Yeah, other ideas or no? No.
Well, I would just want to comment on intellectual rights. You have mentioned that topic. I was wondering how to manage intellectual property in the process of mass co-creation on the internet, and that was my question with Quirky. I was really thinking from the beginning.
Nothing, just being quick. Everything is really revealed. So you can't patent anything.
Yes.
And it's just being fast market. As these kind of product of Quirky, they are out of fashion before the examiner of a patent even starts to read the application. So but the good thing is everything what is on these contests is freely revealed, so also your competitors can't patent. You can do, there are some like in these slow contests I showed. There were some of the contributors. They said we submitted and we previously, as we had the idea already, applied for patent or design protection. But once, so you have to do it previously. But in general, for these idea contests, it's really just being quick to market. There's a different stream which most of us don't talk about it. You also can do it for technical problem solving, what has been called open innovation. This works perfectly in the traditional patent regime. But for the ideas, you can't patent anyway.
That is questionable, maybe. Because
there are not ideas,
there are people trying to patent ideas, and you really have a problem.
Yeah, in protocol I also covered that if you really want to have a closed mode of new product development, so you don't need competitors to do it. So the only choice that you have is to do it as closed mode. It would be the offline mode that you exist, and have participants. It's in one case that we did, and signed non-disclosure agreements, But even that wouldn't give you a guarantee that it won't happen. But it would be done.
The open part, when you have open co-creation, is actually
Exactly. I
the
would
problem.
say-
When it's
Yeah.
closed, you can control it, and then it is
Yeah,
fine.
but from my experience, it's really not that a patent gives the competitive advantage, but the ability to bring it to market, to have the technical knowledge, to have the market access for these kind of consumer products. Of course, if we talk about pharmaceuticals and so on, it's different.
Thank you.
Yeah, so with your event today, you talked a lot about co-creation with customers. How do you see your protocol useful if you want to do open innovation, for instance, with your suppliers, or like in open innovation more broadly? So, do you see any use of that, or example of that?
Not with suppliers, but I see possibilities for the use of my protocol also with your employees. And say resources or such context in innovation. In the case of the supplier, I would suggest would be turning around here. So the supplier would be the one with
Exactly.
applying the protocol.
Yeah, there was one slide I skipped. So what we see now is a lot of co-creation is done with employees inside the firm. A lot of governments are doing it now with citizens. It's really big, one of the largest trends. So, but then you could say as a citizen you like the customer of the government. With suppliers, I agree. It's normally you would do technical problem solving, not so much idea contests. But on the other hand side, it's also blurring. Some of the designers submitting an idea, perhaps they are something more like a supplier, as normally you would make a contract for them, so it's really blurring in between there. It's a lot of this is done for recruitment. I don't know here at the university if you have it, but in Germany at my university, a lot of companies now set up these kind of idea contests or design contests, as they say it's better to screen students in an assessment center. So as then people come up and they submit really proofs of their work and their motivation. So this is really strong now that we have design contests or idea contests for recruitment.
I see the methods for incorporating knowledge from the supply chain or the whole value chain. It's really also lacking that whether you talk about design for X or what you call it. There's also a need for similar protocols.
Maybe I could use the insight on thinking of that. Okay, I'll do that.
I would just like to give you an information that was a very large content of idea, the taste of chips, the Serbian taste of chips. It is the large company still producing chips. Probably the generator potato chips, probably generators of this idea of people from Pepsi, because you want Pepsi. And it was this content was promoted on the television everywhere for commercials. The taste of Serbia. So there were, I don't know, a few tastes, pickles. Barbecue, Serbian barbecue, and sarma. It's some kind of a meal with meat and cabbage.
McDonald's is also doing that.
Oh, tasting good. Okay, so perhaps we should co-create the coffee now.
The last question is
your cases are focused on the US market, European market. Is there a similar direct relationship or other or is it more focused on the US and European market?
Whereas my Chinese skills are even worse than my Serbian skills, I really don't know. I don't know if you have experience, I don't know.
I know of some Asian initiatives where there's also co-creation. For instance, Singapore is doing that in its community. Everyone can submit ideas on improving the city and so on. There are a lot more of these things. I don't know whether it's the same scale that it's taking place in here in the Western, but it's also there.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have a coffee break.
And then we'll stay here. Yeah.